Hi, I'm Hazel. I'd like to tell you about my tricky relationship with my mother-in-law, Eleanor. Eleanor has always made things challenging for me. She has old-fashioned beliefs and, honestly, never really seemed to like me much. For a while, my husband Michael and I lived far away from her, so she couldn't interfere with our lives too often. But when Michael got a new job closer to his family, Eleanor became a more regular presence, which wasn't easy for me. Luckily, Michael's dad, Thomas, has always been kind to me, and that made things a little easier. However, Eleanor's behavior has been hard to handle, especially since my own childhood was full of difficult people, including my own parents. Despite my issues with Eleanor, I wanted my daughter, Mabel, who was 9 at the time, to have a good relationship with her grandparents. Mabel loved spending time with them, and they were her only grandparents since I had no contact with my own family. Plus, Michael is very family-oriented, so cutting Eleanor out of our lives wasn't really an option. Even though I tried to be civil for Mabel's sake, Eleanor often caused problems. One major issue was how Eleanor would criticize Mabel's diet. She believed I wasn't feeding Mabel right and insisted Mabel needed more nuts for protein. But there was a huge problem with this. Mabel is allergic to nuts. Even the smell of nuts can make her sick. I explained this to Eleanor multiple times, and even the doctor confirmed that Mabel's meals were balanced and safe for her. But Eleanor just wouldn't accept it. She kept saying Mabel needed to get over her allergy by being exposed to nuts, and she even went as far as to call me a bad mom. Things got tense because Eleanor didn't just ignore Mabel's allergy. She tried to convince Mabel to eat nuts. Thankfully, Mabel knew better and always said no. But I was still worried about what Eleanor might do, so I talked to Michael about it. I'm really worried about leaving Mabel alone with Eleanor, I told him. I'm afraid she might try to give Mabel nuts, thinking it will somehow help her allergy. Michael tried to calm me down. Don't worry, Hazel. My mom has her old-fashioned ideas, but she knows her limits, and Dad is always there to step in if needed. Mabel loves being with her grandparents, and we can't just stop her from seeing them over this. I understood Michael's point, and I knew Mabel enjoyed spending time with her grandparents. But Eleanor's refusal to respect Mabel's allergy genuinely scared me. We really need to talk about this, Michael. I don't want to keep worrying every time Mabel is with them, I insisted. Michael continued to reassure me. It's okay, Hazel. I'll talk to my mom, and she'll listen to me. Mabel loves her grandparents, and it wouldn't be fair to take that away from her over something like this. I wanted to believe Michael, and I didn't want to take Mabel away from her grandparents, especially since she had never expressed any hesitation about seeing them. But I didn't realize just how stubborn Eleanor could be. The situation finally escalated at Mabel's 10th birthday party. We invited Thomas and Eleanor, and they were excited to come. When they arrived, Eleanor handed Mabel a big gift wrapped in bright paper and exclaimed, "Happy birthday, Mabel. I got you something really special." Mabel thanked her and then curiously looked at her grandpa, asking, "What's inside, Grandpa?" Thomas just smiled and said, "I have no idea. Your grandma picked it out, and even I don't know what it is. Let's find out together." "Come on, Mabel. Open it. I bet you'll love it," Eleanor said, looking more excited than usual. At that moment, a part of me felt uneasy, as if Eleanor's special gift might be something more than what it seemed. "I can't wait to see what you got me, Grandma. I'm so excited," Mabel exclaimed with a huge smile. "We'll open all the gifts after we cut the cake, Mabel," I suggested. "Let's wait until all your friends arrive, and once we finish the cake, you can start opening presents." Eleanor, however, had other plans. "No, Mabel needs to open my gift before the cake. That's why I came early to give her this special present," she insisted. I felt uneasy. But Mabel looked genuinely thrilled by her grandma's big, heavy gift, so I decided to go along with it. If this made Mabel happy on her birthday, I wasn't going to say no. What I didn't know was that Eleanor's special present would turn the whole celebration into a nightmare. When it was finally time to open presents, Mabel eagerly unwrapped her grandma's gift. Inside, she found a big, beautiful cake with her name on it. For a moment, she was delighted. Until suddenly, she passed out right in front of us. Panic surged through me as Michael and I rushed to Mabel's side, her face turning pale and her breathing shallow. We saw her throat starting to swell up, and in a flash, Michael grabbed the epinephrine shot while someone else dialed 911. My heart was pounding, and I couldn't think of anything but Mabel. Knowing exactly who was behind this, I turned to Eleanor, trembling with anger. Eleanor, what on earth did you put in Mabel's cake? I demanded. Tell me what's in it. My voice shook with fear and fury. Eleanor acted innocent, shrugging. I didn't do anything, Hazel. It's just a regular cake. I have no idea what's happening. Maybe it's something you did. You're always ignoring my advice about her nutrition, and now look at her. She accused me, as if this were somehow my fault. Focusing on Mabel, I ignored her excuses and gave her the emergency shot I always carried for moments like this. After a few minutes, Mabel's swelling went down a little, but she was still unconscious. I knew she needed to go to the hospital right away. Tears filled my eyes as I watched my daughter lying there, and even Michael looked close to breaking down. Eleanor, seeing the gravity of the situation, began to cry as well. Trying to make sense of what happened, I cut open the cake, and what I found inside confirmed my worst fear. There were nuts in the cake. My heart sank. Eleanor, how could you? I told you again and again that Mabel is allergic to nuts. Do you have any idea how dangerous this is? I demanded, barely able to contain my anger. Eleanor looked defensive. I was just trying to help Mabel, not hurt her. I think you're too strict about her diet, Hazel. I thought gradually introducing nuts might help her overcome the allergy, she argued. At that point, my frustration overflowed. Are you out of your mind, Eleanor? Our daughter could have died from this. Who gave you the right to make these decisions? I'm her grandma. I have the right to take care of her. Eleanor shot back. You're overreacting, Hazel. You're just trying to make me look bad. Just then, the ambulance arrived, and the paramedics quickly tended to Mabel before taking her to the hospital. We followed closely, overwhelmed with fear and worry. When we got there, the doctors informed us that Mabel would need time to wake up and would have to stay under observation for a couple of days. At that moment, the reality of what could have happened hit me hard. I broke down in Michael's arms, feeling a mix of fear, anger, and relief that Mabel was going to be okay. We'd made it through the worst, but I knew things with Eleanor could never go back to the way they were after I called Thomas to let him know that Mabel was safe. I turned to Michael, unable to hold back my anger. I'll never forgive Eleanor for what she did today, I said. She put our daughter's life at risk. It's unbelievable that she'd go this far. She was only thinking about herself, trying to make me look like a bad mom, without even considering how dangerous it was for Mabel. Michael looked down, clearly shaken. I can't believe she'd do something like this. It's like I don't even recognize my own mom anymore. I thought she cared about Mabel's happiness, but now I see she only cared about making herself look right. I'm so sorry I didn't realize sooner, Hazel. I should have done more to protect Mabel. Seeing the truth about his mom for the first time, Michael looked devastated. He began to understand the depth of what had happened and how much harm Eleanor's actions could cause. Even Thomas, who had always been a kind grandfather, was clearly shaken by Eleanor's behavior. She had gone too far this time, and we all knew it was serious. We couldn't let Eleanor keep hurting Mabel. Her actions were a real threat to our daughter's safety, and we were committed to protecting Mabel from that kind of influence. We realized that keeping Eleanor in our lives wasn't safe for Mabel, and we couldn't let it continue. While Mabel was still in the hospital, Michael and I made a difficult decision. We needed to address what had happened and make sure Eleanor wouldn't be able to endanger Mabel again. When we got back home, we found Thomas trying to reason with Eleanor, but she seemed indifferent, busying herself on her phone. The untouched birthday cake sat nearby, a painful reminder of what had happened. When they noticed us, Thomas and Eleanor hurried over. I just got an update, I said. Mabel is in good hands and will recover soon. She's still unconscious, but the doctors are hopeful. Eleanor, completely missing the gravity of the situation, dismissed our worry. Thank goodness, Mabel will be okay. But really, this isn't a big deal. She'll be fine, and her nut allergy will go away soon enough. That was the final straw. Michael's patience broke, and he confronted her. Mom, do you even realize what you've done? You put Mabel in the hospital and now act like it's no big deal. Your stubbornness and disregard nearly cost Mabel her life. Thomas, equally upset, voiced his disappointment. The guests who had stayed behind to support us looked shocked and disapproving as they watched Eleanor's lack of remorse. I had had enough, too. Eleanor, I said firmly, we've given you so many chances to change. But even after putting my daughter in the hospital, you're showing no remorse. This is it. You're no longer welcome in our lives or near Mabel. You are banned from this house. Eleanor glared at me. You can't tell me where to go. Michael would never cut me off over a disagreement about how to raise my granddaughter. But Michael stood his ground. No, Mom, he said, his voice firm. You're not welcome here anymore. Dad can visit any time, but not you. He's the only grandparent Mabel has who cares about her safety. You put her in the hospital and acted like it was the right thing to do. I can't let someone so careless be around my daughter. Eleanor was stunned. She had always counted on Michael to side with her, never expecting him to turn against her. With the guests looking on in disapproval and Thomas deeply disappointed, she realized she was alone in her actions. From that moment, Michael and I knew we'd done the right thing for Mabel's safety. It was painful, but we had finally taken a stand to protect our family. In a final act of desperation, Eleanor screamed at us, blaming me for turning everyone against her. This is all your fault, Hazel. You made them hate me. I'll never forgive you for this. You should be begging for my forgiveness, she yelled, her voice filled with rage. I'll take you to court for grandparents' rights, and the judge will let me see Mabel. Just you wait. I kept my voice steady. You're not likely to get grandparents' rights from jail, Eleanor, I replied. I'm sure the judge will find it interesting that you, someone who endangered her own granddaughter, would ask for visitation rights. Eleanor's face fell. Jail? What are you talking about, Hazel? I didn't do anything wrong. Didn't do anything? I shot back, my voice rising with anger. Exposing a child to an allergen she's severely allergic to is considered endangering a minor. It's a serious crime. Maybe you didn't realize, but Michael and I did. We've already called the police. And here they come. In disbelief, Eleanor looked toward the door as 2 police officers entered. She began to panic, desperately pleading, No. Please, this can't be happening. You can't arrest me. But her words fell on deaf ears as the officers informed her she was under arrest. She clung to Thomas, begging him to do something. Thomas, you can't let them do this to me. I'm your wife. Thomas looked at her sadly. Eleanor, I warned you for years to change, to be kinder, but you never listened. Today you put our granddaughter in harm's way. I won't protect you from the consequences. Eleanor turned to Michael, her son, for support. But he stood firm. Mom, he said, I can't let you near my family anymore. This is over. Tomorrow, I'll talk to a lawyer and start the process to make sure you don't hurt Mabel again. Realizing she was truly alone, Eleanor cried out, pleading with the officers as they led her away. With her departure, a sense of peace returned to the room, although we knew there was a long road of healing ahead. That night, after the guests had left, we went back to the hospital, grateful that Mabel was safe. The next morning, Mabel woke up, feeling much better but visibly shaken. She cried, clinging to me, terrified at the idea of seeing Eleanor again. Please, don't let her come near me, Mom. She made me eat things that made me sick. To help Mabel process her emotions, we found a therapist for her, and Michael and I also began attending family therapy to strengthen our communication. Having Thomas's support throughout it all was invaluable, and together, we began to rebuild our trust and sense of security as a family. Eleanor's life quickly unraveled. News of her actions spread, and her family members, disgusted by what she had done, cut ties with her. Her friends, shocked and disappointed, stopped speaking to her. Left with no one to turn to, she found herself in desperate need of help but couldn't find anyone willing to support her. Adding to her downfall, Thomas filed for divorce the following day, delivering the papers to her while she was still in jail. Enraged and helpless, Eleanor was left alone to face the consequences of her choices. For us, it marked the beginning of a new chapter, one focused on healing and unity. Mabel's resilience shone through, and with Thomas's unwavering support, our family grew stronger. Free from the fear and chaos Eleanor had once brought into our lives, and the months that followed, Thomas managed to secure a quick divorce, leveraging state laws and the police report as solid evidence. Our legal case against Eleanor continued, and although she was expected to cover Mabel's medical bills, her financial troubles ultimately led to a lengthy prison sentence after the judge ruled against her. Additionally, we were granted restraining orders to keep her permanently away from our family. Now, with the reassurance that Eleanor won't be able to interfere in our lives, we feel a renewed sense of security. But we remain vigilant. If she ever attempts to cross the boundaries we've set, she'll come face to face with two fiercely protective parents. Michael and I are fully prepared to defend Mabel with everything we have, ensuring she grows up in a safe, loving, and supportive environment.